Redstone can be pretty confusing. I've been working on Krusty Craft World and I've been getting into redstone contraptions and I realized my stuff was sloppy, so I decided to come to a redstone testing world and try a few things out. Now, redstone, I remember I used to be pretty dang good at it, but I've kind of lost my touch. I haven't done things in a while, and there's a lot of different things you can do, like this contraption here, target blocks. I just tried to make a contraption using a bunch of different things, a bunch of different game mechanics, because that's, if I could define redstone in just like in a sentence, it's Minecraft machine abusing game mechanics. And I mean it. How long has Minecraft been out? Like 13 years? Like, the boxing count's not good for game mechanics. Like, redstone absolutely pounds that motherfucker. So today I wanted to cover with you some of the most simple redstone contraptions I use. And I'm going to explain how they work, because I know sometimes it's not very well understood. Now this is what we call a T flip-flop. Now what a T flip-flop does is it generates a one-tick pulse, or you can take I most often use it for things like a button and turning it to have an action like a lever. You see I click it once, this lamp stays on. I click it again, this lamp stays off. Now the way that works is you can power blocks with redstone. So this redstone is going into this block. Now if I had another piece of redstone here, it wouldn't get powered. But repeaters can suck redstone through the block, so this repeater will take it. But this is also powering this piston. So the repeater only takes the redstone for a second before that piston is pushed up, which does a thing called it gives a one-tick pulse, so a very fast redstone signal to this piston right here. And when sticky pistons operate on a one-tick pulse, they don't actually take the block with them. Now they will if the block wasn't on it originally, but if they move the block, it stays and it comes back. So that's how you generate a one-tick pulse. Am I talking a little fast? I feel like I'm talking a little fast. I hope that made sense. This here is an automatic item filter, or not item filter. Sorry, it's a item dropper. So say I take something, right? I have a hopper going into here. Say it's a farm. Say these are eggs. Say it's a chicken farm or something like that. And I need these to be moved into a water stream or moved or something. This detects when there's something in there and it will automatically fire it out. Now it does this using a comparator. Now comparators are interesting because they can detect when a container is full. So basically what this does is this is powering this block here, which is powering this block, it's powering both of these redstone bits, which this redstone here in turn powers this dropper through I don't exactly know the redstone principle, but I just know that this redstone dust is powering this dropper, so when this is turned on, it powers this block, which powers this redstone, which powers this. It also powers this redstone because it's attached to the same block, which is going into here, where the repeater, same principle as that one, drags the redstone signal out and back into here, creating an endless loop until this thing is empty and this comparator is no longer powered. Now you can use these in things like over here, which is another redstone contraption I like to use, called a dropper vader. Basically, these are droppers all faced up against each other, and if I were to put these two hoppers, say, in this chest, it goes up here. Now this design is a little flawed. The last item will always be left in here, and I'm not sure why, but it basically makes use, it detects when something's in here, creates the pulse, and goes in here, and it also activates this observer. Now when this observer is activated, it activates this observer, which also powers that dropper. And then when this one's activated, this observer senses this one being activated, which powers this, powering that dropper. This one also senses this one being, and so on and so forth, powering them, transporting the items all the way to the top. Is this making sense so far? I think it's making sense. Now here I have redstone clock designs. Now back in my early days of redstone, this is what my redstone clocks were. It was just repeaters going into each other, pushing redstone through blocks through redstone dust. But I have since learned about these things called hopper clocks. Now it uses that principle of when there's something in this hopper, it'll power that. Now when there's something in this hopper, because it's flowing here, it'll flow into here. But this hopper won't let anything flow out of it. And that is because when hoppers are powered by redstone, this lever, they do not let anything go. But if I let this go, they will go back and forth. The item will go back and forth, giving us a clocked output. Now this can change depending on how many items you put in here and the circuit you hook up to it. It can create longer clocks and other things like that. This clock, and that's toggleable. Originally I didn't know how to make this toggleable, but a way you could do with this one is you could have a piston like under this block that pushes it up, or you could have a piston cutting off the circuit by, I call this cutting the circulation because I think of redstone like blood, and then the blood can't flow. So you amputate this lamp here, and that cuts off the redstone signal. It's just a cool way, like if you don't have hoppers, or I don't know, if you have extra repeaters and you just want to make your redstone clock out of that, that's a really good way to do it. Now something that we all, I think, know is that pistons are cool. Pistons push a lot of things, but sometimes you need a block to move more than just one space. So this is what we call a double piston extender. Now, I have a target block here, but any block for that matter would work here. But I have a target block, and you'll see why in a second. Basically, the way this works is this redstone powers this target block, which powers this piston, but also the observer sees this redstone being powered and powers that block. So that chain goes up here powering this block, which I accidentally just broke because I forgot I'm in creative mode. But that's necessary because once this piston extends, this piston is here. So if that block's powered, that piston can extend. And the way it like double fires like that, the reason it double fires is because this observer also detects when this redstone turns off. So it powers this block, allowing it to fire again when it comes to the bottom. And now the reason I use a target block instead of a normal block is because that makes this entire thing tileable. Now what I mean by tileable is if I get rid of this here, tileable in Minecraft means it can have it can be placed next to each other and they all fit together. They all fit perfectly. So if I were to do this and just reconstruct this here, basically what target blocks do is, say there's a redstone line here. Now let me grab a lever. There's a redstone line, and it's running next to some pistons. That redstone line is not directed to go into those pistons. But what a target block does is it redirects the redstone. So now all these pistons work. So the reason it has target blocks is so I can make it one wide, and this entire redstone line can now power these pistons. And as you can see here, if I still click the same button, voila, it works perfectly fine. Now over here, I have a triple piston extender. Now this is where it gets a little more complicated. I just use these to build something in the upcoming Krusty Craft video. It's actually the thing that made me want to kind of test my redstone skills again. Now this makes use of this observer detecting an input from this button and redstone lamp, which then in turn turns on this repeater. It needs a little bit of a delay, but that powers this piston pushing these two up, which this observer detects that thing turning on, which then powers the second piston once it's here. Now this observer detects when this piston extends, which means this observer is detecting that this saw this. So observers can detect when other observers saw things. So it sends that up into this piston, which pushes this observer up into where the third piston is. And then it uses what it sees to power that piston. Also a one-tick pulse. You'll notice that's a sticky piston because observers give out one-tick pulses. That's why it drops and leaves the block there. It sees that and powers that third piston up in that spot. and then it's used to bring it back down the same way, just because the same way that these things are track giving to making so this thing sees two things, the extension and the retraction, and this observer also sees this twice, the on and the off. And this is also a tileable design, as I can do this, or I guess I don't need it. The redstone on top isn't necessary unless you want to make it tileable like this, because then it needs to power all these redstone lamps. So you just place observers facing this way, redstone repeater with 4 ticks, and then you have 3 pistons. I'm gonna get rid of this because otherwise it's gonna break. Oops. And then you just take your observers facing this way, so the red dot coming toward you. Power those blocks so it powers those pistons. And then over here you just need the thing to be facing to the pistons so they see when they extend, and then up here so they see when those see that they extend. It's kind of a weird chain. It's like Inception almost. And actually I lied. I did not mean to place this. I meant to put pistons here because these pistons need to push up these observers, which I keep placing the wrong way. Oh my gosh. And this should still... Yep. It'll work the exact same. I know this video is dragging on a little bit, but I told you this is about redstone information. If you don't want to know how to do redstone, you can leave. You can leave. I'm not going to be pissed. I just know where you live. Now over here is something I use when you need to create a longer pulse. Now say I have a bow and arrow. Now target blocks are neat because unlike a button that stays pressed for as long as the arrow's on it, a target block will only give out a short pulse. Sorry, that was a bad example. It'll only give out a short pulse. What a pulse extender does is it takes what's put into it and loops it around until that redstone signal strength dies out. So because I put a target block here, you see if I hit this one right here, this will not turn on for very long because that doesn't output a very high signal strength. And comparators take whatever signal strength is put into the back of it, and they put that out the front. So that signal strength, whatever's put into it, gets put out here, and it loses one here, and that gets put in here, it loses one here. So it slowly loses the redstone signal strength. So if I hit I did not mean to put that in subtract mode. If I put an arrow there, this will be really short, but if I were to hit a dead center bullseye, this should be a little bit longer, because dead center bullseyes on target blocks leave longer pulse, or give higher pulse lengths. Not pulse lengths, sorry, they give out higher outputs. And we are going to skip the next 2 pulse extenders because I just remembered there's actually no reason you would ever use those over the other one. They are actually useless. Now over here is one of my personal favorites. These are good for storage systems, for key card recognizers, for doors, things like that. This is an item filter. Now the way these work is you put an item, which I'm going to grab in here. Let's just say I have a few of these. Alright, so I have these set up to get comparators, repeaters, and redstone. So if I put all of this in this chest here, you should see that these should start filling up in their respective hoppers. Now the way this works, and this is also another tileable design, it's all done in one length. Now most item sorters are, but the way this works is, say I take this item frame and I put it in here. This will not go into one of these, it will not break. It'll just keep going down the line because it never found an item for it. So the way this works is it uses comparators, which detect when there are things in them. Now you make use of the fact that depending on how much is in it, it gives out a different signal strength. So these are all giving out signal strengths because I have these programmed by filling it up with only comparators. But it's not quite enough of each item to make it down to this level. Now once another item enters, it's just enough to push it over the edge where this gets powered, which can be picked up by this single, what is it called? I'm blanking on the name. Oh, repeater. By this single repeater, which then turns off this redstone torch. So this redstone torch unpowers this hopper, which then allows that one item that got in here to go through into the chest. And it just works the same way all the way down, and once it's back to this number in here, it won't be enough to turn on this repeater, which means it won't be enough to let anything through the system, which means nothing should be able to make it through the system. I hope that kind of made sense. That was a lot of signal strength, pulse, weird random things. Yeah. Now this here is what I believe everybody calls this. It's called an AND gate. Now the way redstone torches work is that if a redstone torch is being powered by... So redstone torches are a power source, right? They give off signal strengths of 15, much like a redstone block. Now, but what redstone torches also have is that if they have something powering the block that they are on, they don't give off a pulse. So you'll see that does not give off a pulse, and if I turn this off, that turns on. It's like an inverted thing. So the way this works is it's two redstone torches. It powers this piece of redstone dust here, which powers the block that this redstone torch is on, which means this one is off. Now, the reason there's two is because if I break this one, or if I power this block turning it off, this stays on. But if I turn both of them off or break both of them, this redstone is no longer powered, which means this can turn on, giving us a redstone output. Now this is useful when it comes to things like you need a combination lock. Now the way combination locks work is you basically make like a wall of levers. This is the most simple one. You make a wall of levers, and then on the parts that you want the lever to be down, you place a redstone torch. That way the redstone is powered off. The redstone torch is powered off. And then on the ones that you do, so let's flick all these off, for example, because those are the ones that have the torch on them. And the ones that you want to have up, put redstone dust behind them. Because then if they are flicked down, and I can't seem to figure out... Oh, yeah. So this is a bad example because this is underneath here. These redstone torches are powering this through the floor, but it still works the exact same. So if I were to go, that opens the door. But say I had this redstone dust here, which is on a lever I don't want flicked down. If it's flicked down, you heard the door close. If it's flicked down, that means this redstone torch turns off, which means we don't get an output from it. Now we are getting an output from this bottom one because we have all the ones off. We have all the levers on the bottom row in the correct position, which allows this redstone torch to be on as it is not powered, giving us an output, turning off this redstone torch. But say I unpower the one that's wrong, that then unpowers this redstone torch here, giving us an output from this one, because this is the AND gate that I explained over there. And I had this originally. Now this door, you may notice, was actually powered, which doesn't make sense because when doors are powered, they are supposed to be open, right? They're supposed to be open. Well, that's all fine and dandy until you realize that this door can't be opened with like a lever or something. It makes it foolproof for that, because if you place a door up against this, then it is technically closed, but it's facing this wall. So if you take power away from it, maybe, then it opens, and it can't be powered or opened with any other thing other than what is through here. And I built a little... Whoa! This leads me to another point. Game mechanics. Redstone itself is pretty simple. It's powering and stuff. Like, once you understand how each block works, it's pretty simple. The hard part is game mechanics. Like this game mechanic right now. This room, I'm going to reveal the mystery to you. Oh, I almost saw through the door there. It's literally just maps. It's just a map of the sandstone. And I just have it on top of glowstone, on top of item frames, literally everywhere. So it's just a huge room. Like, I can break out of that. So that's the hardest part about redstone, is understanding the game mechanic. But when you really break it down, in itself is not that hard. Just, observers carry. Observers are almost like a redstone line in that they carry, but each one turns off as they go, doing crazy things like this. And that's why I like tinkering with redstone so much, and the real reason why I'm building that Funland district. Because it allows me to tinker with redstone. And for those of you who came here to understand redstone a little bit more, I hope you all enjoyed watching. And I hope you learned something. Like, hell, I learned something doing this. I had to figure these contraptions out. Yeah. Fuck.